Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Identity Library. My name is Veronica Becher, and today I'm joined by Nima. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. And actually, this time it was him who approached me. It wasn't like me just being on the hunt for different episodes and finding really interesting people. It was just him approaching me randomly at my company. So I hope you're enjoying this episode. And maybe a small disclaimer: this episode will likely trigger some listeners, and we're gonna talk about some sensitive topics. So please just be advised, and let's just get started. So Nima, can you just talk a little bit about yourself and tell us more where you're from, who you are, what your last name is?
Yes. So my name is Nima Fatimi. I'm studying a PhD in design here at NCSU, and I came here last year. I'm originally from Iran. We call it Iran back home.
Iran.
Iran.
Germans say Iran.
Yeah,
So,
Iran. It's just the R of it. Yeah,
We're good.
you're good. So we actually call Germany something very different.
What do you call Germany?
Alman.
Oh, it's like French.
Yeah.
Allemagne.
Yeah, Alman.
Well, look at that.
Yeah.
This is where your French skills from 7th grade come back to you.
We had actually historically we had lots of exchange with French people
Mm.
when the French language was prominent around the world. So we the system of our government renewed itself, so we got many French words from there. So yeah, so I'm from Iran. I came here a year ago. It's a very interesting experience. I would like to talk about different aspects of experiencing living abroad, especially from a Middle Eastern point of view, especially from an Iranian point of view, who so we are not very much aligned with our government, and most of us who immigrate or come to go to other countries to study, they are sort of get away from the type of government we have there. So yeah, I would like to talk about this stuff. And also, so before I come here, I was living in Spain, Barcelona, for 4 years.
Really? Why Spain? Why Barcelona? This is funny. The last episode I recorded was literally about Spain. It's not even a joke. And I'm like, I feel like we're just carrying on this whole topic about Spain. And yeah, why Barcelona? Sorry.
So Barcelona, it's an amazing city. I really suggest it to anyone to visit it at least. It's very historical. The alleys, the lanes you walk in, they're historical lanes. Many famous painters, artists, architects, they were there. They have, like, for example, you're just randomly walking like in some Pere-Mesh backs. It's like a lane. Then you see a door. Then you search the door. You notice that this is like a famous work by just a random popular artist that is in style of Art Deco. So it's a very amazing city. I moved there because there is a private school that is famous, and I wanted to try that school, get a master in it. And I also enjoyed the Spanish culture. I heard you're also from Europe, so you've heard it. It's just warmer. Now I'm not saying warmer; they're just interestingly warmer. But I met many people from other countries in Europe that they're very warm, especially Germans. I would say
That's interesting, because I have some friends that visited Austria and Germany, and they were like, Germans are so cold, and I'm like, well, we can be cold. It really depends. But it really depends who you meet on the streets. It's the same as going to New York or to a different city in the United States, and then you get completely opposite experiences, right? So one experience is like, oh, really nice people. And then you're like, I don't like these Americans. I'm sorry, but that's just what happens all the time.
Yeah, I agree. It depends on your home culture and how you brought up to expect things from people. So this is actually one of the things I would like to talk about later, but it's just that have you heard when people talking about society, they say society expects you to do that, to do this.
Mm-hmm.
These expectations, first of all, I don't think it's wise to talk about it in third person. So society expects something from us. It's something that we are part of it too. We are dynamic parts of it.
Mm.
Um, so we make these cultures and expectations.
So you're saying it's the people to blame for the fact that if we like to put something on a third person perspective because it kind of puts the blame away from us
Yeah,
too as people.
It's a cope.
Cope
It's a
mechanism.
coping mechanism. So it
Yeah.
makes you feel easier to criticize something because you know you're not part of it. But in fact, we are part of it. Different cultures, actually, not one culture at once. Uh, since the internet came out, we have a second culture that sometimes it's in another level, that
Mm-hmm.
it has maybe contradictions with the culture we have uh, back home. But the internet culture is its own thing, and it's the collection of expectations, ways of communication, signs. For example,
Mm.
you can say, like, have you seen this emoji of blue hat?
Yeah.
So that's a sign, but it's a way people communicate in the internet. So when we are brought up with these expectations and cultures, we go to another place. They have different ones because they have been brought up with this different desires. So actually, based on some philosophers, some sociologists, one of the main things that makes those expectations are common desires for different things. For example, Americans, as might have everyone heard it in the world, they have a desire for more freedom. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so of course, like people in Germany or Spain also want to be free, but this is what they collectively desire. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and this becomes an expectation. It manifests into real world when we collectively believe something. So I'm just sorry, but because I want to talk about
No,
all of
don't worry,
these
don't worry.
different topics, I want you to lead what I'm saying, to not
N-
to go away
Oh,
from.
don't worry. I'm just like literally like a sponge right now, getting in all the information that you're like sharing, and I'm like, ooh, we jumped into like such a deep topic right away, but I love it. Since Identity Library is literally about that. It's about how do you find yourself, and the aspect of society was just never like directly on my mind, but I feel like it's interesting to share with our listeners, to just understand that, you know, when you move places, you need to like also see you're the one who's kind of also dictating how society sees a norm, right? And what we expect as a rule or what we expect from others. But yeah, maybe like to kind of like lead you to the to the topic back. I have one more question about Barcelona, and it's so you're studying design or architecture, right? Or is it specifically just design in general? Just to give like a background.
So I started with architecture.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bachelor's and master's in architecture
Mm.
from Iran. Then I thought that is not my thing. Like over that course, when I was 24 years old, I started to think this is not what I'd like to do, because I had several internships, 2 internships, and
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like the work, because what I was brought up to think about design in general was that people design things, and when you go work for someone, you're part of that team. Um, in my country, in many offices, not all offices, the culture is that you work with someone. There will be no name of you published anywhere. You're
Mm.
just like a foot soldier, you know.
Oh my gosh, this reminds me so much of research. The way research in universities in Germany sometimes works. Like we had so many projects in business where I helped out for a research project, and the person who's on the paper is my professor,
Okay.
as well as 2 other professors. My name was never mentioned there and will probably never be mentioned, and it's just like a feeling of you don't feel valued. Like your work is kind of like you're helping them succeed in life and get all the praise in a way, even though you want to contribute to the research, probably, or like to the work.
Yes, I
Place.
agree completely. I think some of the fairest academic environments in the world is located in United States, in my opinion, because the thing is that the structure is very well defined, and what if you're doing something, there's no work out of the definition of your duties that is not mentioned. So when you're working with your professor, everything is mentioned in your contract. In other universities in Spain or back in Iran, these works go overshadowed by the professor, because there's almost never there's a clear contract between you and them, and that makes things like undefined things makes the process complex and prone to faults. And this is something that happens. Yeah, I agree, especially in academia, because in academia, if your name is on a paper and your name is not on a paper, it makes a lot of difference, you know. So yeah, I didn't like the design environment overall, especially architecture. Then I tried to, so I was always interested into AI and psychology. And these seemed back then, because AI wasn't a trend back then. We're talking 2015, 2014. I was interested because of a show I was watching. I thought it's interesting. And
That's crazy.
yeah,
That just reminds me of, like, you know, when you watch a show or a movie and you're like, oh, I really want to go there, or I really want to visit this place in life, and it just inspires you.
yeah, that's actually a dynamic. It's a natural dynamic that you watch different things, and then we can talk about this again too. Then you find yourself in it, and then you find yourself, it's not only the current version of you, is how you might become your potential. And it's a compass, you know. Part of the job of, like, Zizek, he's a philosopher.
Yes.
European philosopher. He says that one of the functions of movies and shows is to show you what you could desire. And one person, for example, we are talking about let's talk about the show with many characters, like Game of Thrones. You talk with different people, there might be 1-2 characters that everyone love, but except that, each person have their own niche, unique character that they love, and they're looking forward to see what happens to them. It's because they see part of their own desires, own characteristics in that person, okay? And this is one of the main functions of stories in general. One of them, not all, is that you find yourself in them, and you can also predict how would your desire work, because always stories have a morale or a hidden message or an unconscious message. So if you desire to, God forbid, harm someone, then there are stories that they'll teach you and predict that this desire will end in mayhem or in your self-pain or others' pain. So that's how things work, and it helped me a lot. So we'll get into more later.
I'm just so invested into this topic. Like, I got into this, we started this podcast and I was like, we will see what happens, whatever stories I get here. And it's just, I love how every single time when I see you, we have like a deep conversation, and it's about something so random, about, like, we say it in German, like God in the world, like about everything. Like, you can talk about the universe, and I could just listen for hours. So I'm like just mesmerized in the situation. Yes. Maybe like storytelling. I'm thinking the same goes with like music, or when you see like in social settings when you work with kids. I was a camp counselor this semester, and I feel like so many camp counselors connected with the kids that were like in high school or like much younger than we were, because of the stories they had, because of the way they felt something or they liked something, and this is how you connect with people. Just kind of to give a random thought to your idea.
Yes.
But maybe going back to, you coming to the United States after living in Barcelona for 4 years, you said, right?
Yes. So I was there. The main reason I approached you I needed to tell my story uh, to others. I already say it to anyone who I meet because I think I have a mission, not like a serious mission, like
this
God-given mission,
this
something
is
like
how
that.
you become a
No.
spy.
Yes, exactly. I just feel that some people might find it useful in later stages of their life to hear some exactly those stories, and you see how things might work for you even in hardest situations. So I went there to Barcelona to study, and I finished my master's. I got hired by the same university institute, and I was a teacher assistant there for a year and a half. Uh, this is the official explanation. The unofficial explanation of what happened there was that when I moved there, I was in a very long, deep, committed relationship
Mm.
for 6 years. And when I
Oh.
moved there, she couldn't move there with me. We thought it's going to work for us, but so this might be someone might be hearing this and they have like someone back home. It's just that it would never work unless you define a new way of relationship for both of you. Okay.
Oh, long distance relationships,
Yeah,
right?
you have to change the whole
It
dynamic of your relationship. You shouldn't expect that
it's gonna be the
same.
same,
Yeah,
right? You don't have the time. Even let's be honest, I literally tried to call my best friend today, and we have 6 hours difference. We're not even in a relationship, and I barely can talk to her all the time. She has a life, I have a life. We don't see each other all the time, and I cannot like. I tried long distance relationships too, but it's not an easy way out, and I feel like it shows you a lot of things that you maybe don't want to deal with. Like I have a friend who told me just recently, like there's like if you enter a long distance relationship, you end up seeing if the relationship is good or bad. Like every factor that is in the relationship will be enhanced even more
multiple.
because you're far away from the person. You don't see the person all the time. You're by yourself, and you start feeling all the issues that you have. And if it's a good relationship, it will blossom to a better relationship, a stronger bond. But if there's an issue that is already there and you can't really communicate it properly, it will just be enhanced in the opposite direction. Yeah, and so I feel like 6 years is a long time. Like really respect for like having a long distance relationship and trying to keep up with that while being in Barcelona too, right?
So yeah, like you might be watching like different shows. You see this person who only dated like one person in their life. Uh, Before that relationship, uh, I only dated another person. Okay, so two people before 24 years old. I only dated two people. Okay.
Nothing bad about that,
No, no,
right?
it's not bad. It's just that I could sympathize in a good way. Like for example, like if you've seen Friends or How I Met Your Mother, you see
Mm-hmm.
like Marshall or Ross that
Mm.
they like. I always felt like I'm like them, and
This is the storytelling and it comes back.
yeah,
This is how you
exactly.
find yourself.
Found myself, and not in a good way. So sometimes
This is bad.
you get lost actually in desires that you deem it's might be for you because you haven't already enough explored yourself, you don't know it's not for you.
Mm.
It's part of you, not all of you. Okay. So I thought I was in that relationship. Some things worked, some things didn't, of course, because it didn't continue. And when I got there, we reached the same conclusion that we cannot go on like this. Uh, and we broke up.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Was she in Iran
Yes.
at that time? And then the second question is, did you meet each other in high school or was it like
The first year of college.
first year of college? Yeah. How old are you? Can we share that? Are we
Yes,
allowed to?
I was 19,
19?
18 to 19 years old.
Okay. No, that's a pretty decent age to get into a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I wouldn't recommend a deeply committed relationship for a very young person as that age. I wouldn't recommend, although it had many benefits for me and emotional, psychological, and I think for both of us, it was constructive in a way that so already, your age has seen this, that there are lots of dramas at start of the college or university, emotional dramas, okay? I was shielded from that,
Oh.
and I had time to focus on different other things. But I didn't know, and I think most of people wouldn't know that these dramas will come back at one point. And because when everyone else was dealing with those dramas, they acquired the experience. You didn't.
You didn't, and so you
Then
cried later, right?
you become introduced to them later when you're older, and older literally means more pain. So
Oh no.
if you remember, I don't know if you know how to ride a bicycle.
Mhm.
When we were kid, I don't even remember how I did it. Okay,
Mm.
I remember I did it many times, but I don't remember how much painful or time consuming it was. But later, if I wanted to learn, for example, like a new sport, it became painful for me. As we grow older, the connections in our brain solidify in the place they are, the neurons. The connections become solidified, and when they are solidified, it's very hard to break them or change them. So it would be more painful for you if you want to learn very essential skills later in your life.
It's like learning a language, right?
Yes,
It's the
exactly.
same. That's like the best example I could like come up with. Like the older you get, the more difficult it is to like adjust to even the fact that people stick with their values. They like, isn't there a thing like when you're 25, your brain is like mostly like you have a solid foundation, kind of solid foundation. You still grow, but like your brain is like almost done with all the processes, and it's your basically you won't really exceed anything. Like you won't grow more than that.
So I think, so based on what I've studied
Mm-hmm.
briefly, because I'm amateur in this science, but I think we still grow pretty much more, but the rate becomes significantly less
Less, yeah.
in after early adulthood. It becomes significantly less. So there are things that you can learn in 6 months. You can learn a new language when you're like 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Then each year passes. This the rate makes it in half or 1/4.
Yeah, yeah, that's
So
yeah.
it's meaningful enough for us to be worried about some things, to learn it faster when we're
Mhm.
younger. Some parts of the brain, they don't develop until you're 40. There is a part that actually, it's about how you show self-restraint and control your impulses, that it's not developed until you're 30 years old. Okay,
That's crazy.
so
Explains a lot though.
yeah, I fully understand.
I was just like, explains a lot.
So yeah, and yeah, when the breakup happened, I felt a bit depressed, and we're not talking about being low or being just sad. I just felt I'm my head is empty.
Did you feel something? Like, it's a genuine question. Did you feel something or nothing at all? Because there are like two options. Some people like they grieve in a way where they like something happens and you like start crying, or not really crying, but you feel so much that you can't handle it. And then others, like for me, for instance, when I go through breakups, I don't feel anything for the first month. I just feel like I'm a ghost and I'm existing in the room, but I don't feel anything. And I just like for instance, even when my grandma died just recently, I didn't feel anything. I was just like a ghost. I was confused why I don't feel the emotions that I should feel, that everyone else feels. And that's why I'm curious. Like,
So
how do you
I
grieve?
would say it depends on the person, I think,
Hmm.
but also uh, depression is not feeling anything, is not also sadness, is despair. It's like someone who is sad, angry, but also wants to be sad and angry. There's a person who has no meaning, who has lost their meaning for life, for the things they do, and they are not willing also to acquire a new meaning because they're just tired. So I would say the feeling is a deep tiredness, a deep uh, laziness, somehow I would put it. Okay.
Mm.
That you feel towards moving towards anything. And in another word, because I I love this concept of how desires shape our world, ourselves, society, everything is a state of desirelessness. So you don't have any desire for anything. You lose your desires, you know?
So it's kind of like, have you heard of the 3K model? I don't know, like, I think, or H model. K is the German version of it. It's like the way you motivate yourself. It's a motivation concept.
Okay, yeah.
And it just reminded me, like, intrinsic motivation. That's like the main thing in the model, kind of, to not go into like too many depths, but it's like, in order to find intrinsic motivation, something that you find for yourself, something that will motivate you to go on to do things in life, you need to have like your skills, your hand, your head, and your heart in it. And when everything combined, you get into the state of flow. That's what they call it.
Yes.
And the flow state is the intrinsic motivation. But if one of the things are missing, for instance, your heart is not in it, your head is not in it, and everything just shuts down, you don't have the capability anymore to do something, then you get into these like gray zones where you need so much willpower that and willpower is only to a certain extent there. And if it's empty, you have no jar. Like, you know how people like, you need to fill up your own like cup. There's nothing that will motivate you, and even extrinsic. So a lot of people think, oh, then I should go for extrinsic motivation. So that's like, people use this concept in like management to like, you increase the amount of money you will get, the salary.
These are
But
extrinsic,
yes,
right?
yes, but it won't help you, because the issue is sometimes in order to feel the passion behind something you want to do in life, and even the will to live, and a meaning in life, like I would literally put it like away from even business, just like further away, and say, if you want intrinsic motivation, you need to find in yourself. It will not be something extrinsic where you're like, oh, I'm gonna go, you know how people like cut off their hair like women after a breakup. It might motivate you, it might help you to have a fresh start, but it won't completely cure everything that is inside of you. And that's like the intrinsic motivation that is missing. Yeah, it's just like I just wanted to share that, I guess.
Actually pretty nicely explains how depression works. So I would say exactly because in your mind, in your perspective of the world, everything's dim, everything's negative, everything's meaningless. Then all the things that they're supposed to make you happy, like money or pleasure, they can work only to make you survive the minimums. Okay.
Like materialistic.
So I
everything.
will get
Yeah.
into it actually right now because you mentioned this. So I was depressed. And of course, like any person who gets depressed or feels sad or feel there's no meaning in life, I try to do things. So I create meaning. I create pleasure, at least for myself. So maybe you've heard of this quote that actually many psychologists and philosophers said the same thing, that if you can't find meaning in life, then you will immerse yourself in pleasures, okay? Because
Hedonism.
yes, because it can make
Yeah.
you survive by the minimums, okay? So our body doesn't understand meaning. Our body do understand pleasure, physical pleasure, okay?
Mm.
Like drinking or like eating good food or
Anything that is like like, you know, when you don't know what is like enough, you just go overboard. You think
yes.
like the more the better.
And then you try to fill that hole inside you with these pleasures, but you don't know at the bottom there's a hole. There's another hole that it will empty out whatever you put in it because it's like a black hole. So this is basically what you hear in psychology, especially psychoanalysis. They call it ego. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So ego is that black hole.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has it. Okay. Depressed people, they lose a construct, the superego, that they make above it to connect with society and those expectations we talked about. And when you're depressed, you lose that superego. So everything that goes inside that hole, it never comes back. So I try to immerse myself in pleasure and fun things and doing fun things. I also, the good part was that I became very daring and brave after my breakup and also after having the depression, because I just felt nothing is so important. Okay, so I started taking drugs,
Mm.
and not intense drug like hard drugs, mostly psychoactive drugs like marijuana and other psychedelic
Mm-hmm.
drugs. Um, and we'll get to it later again.
Nima is like,
I want to talk about that specifically. But so yeah, that went on, and after 2 years, I just found myself in a very deep depression, because these things like drugs and stuff, they can help you again survive by the minimums, but they also make you numb. So, and this is a real issue. Like there's a song, it's called "Comfortably Numb" by Pink Floyd.
mm-hmm.
It literally talks
Oh.
about this, how drugs can make you numb about the stimulants around you, whether it to be behaviors or your problems inside your head, like mindsets. You just become, everything inside you grows naturally. You cannot change it, okay? Because you become numb. You just feel, uh, this is the way it is. I feel
You live
fine.
passively. That's how I call it. It's like when you stop taking life into your own hands and you just let life happen to you.
Let go. Yeah, exactly. And the main dynamic by which we operate in this world is very simple, actually. Very, very simple. Um, Down to its simplest dynamic. There are more complex things, but down to its simplest form, we act in this world, then we get we get pleasure or punishment. And I'm not meaning punishment, someone is deliberately punishing us. No, you see good effects or bad effects. And then you, in a feedback loop, you change a part of you or change parts of you or your mindset, part of your mindset or part of your behavior. Then you go into the loop again. And if you see something positive, you do it more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This might sound negative to other people, but it's actually a pretty good thing. It's how any
How we
any
learn,
creature
right?
learn
Yeah.
things. And this is the simplest form. We are way more complex than that. Okay. So there are other things that have part in this dynamic, but in the simplest form, it's like that. And when you're already getting pleasure by doing absolutely nothing, or even doing the harmful things, but yet getting the essential neurochemicals in your brain, that when you actually do something healthy you would get them, then you become passive. You see no point in doing. And part of the thing that both helped me to survive but also hurted me during this time were the drugs. So later, when I talked with a psychologist, like several years later, he told me that your situation would get a lot worse if you didn't use drugs.
Mm.
In my situation, I'm not saying this
You
is
should do
a
it.
prescription for
Please
everyone.
don't, please don't resort to these measures. But yeah, and consult.
So
people.
it's like the last resort. It's like a person has a who has a wound on their leg, and the wound has festered enough that you cannot fix it. You cut the leg. Okay.
It's the same.
It's very
Yeah.
extreme. I'm
No,
sorry
no,
to make
but
this, but I want
it's true.
everyone to understand that these are not the first resorts. But when you're lost completely, something that might feel you a bit better about your life might be these soft psychedelics. They're not the first resort. They're not So medication at that time, I was so depressed. I didn't want medication. I felt you become partly you become the enemy of with yourself. Okay,
Mm.
you don't want to get better. You are like this child, little child, who says, I don't want anything. I just want to go be alone in my apartment or in my room with my toys. It's something like that. So, of course, if you have access to medications, they work wonders actually. But if you, for any reason, you don't want medications, because some people have some guards towards it, I can understand why. If you don't want any type of medication, if you're feeling absolutely horrible, these things can help you, at least you survive. Okay?
In this situation, yeah. Well, it's not something that we can just apply to everyone, but based on
No,
the
of
story,
course.
it makes
And it
sense.
didn't end well for
Yeah,
me. We'll get there.
and it reminds me of oh, I'm forgetting names of philosophers. Oh no. But hedonism is like, or hedonism is basically the concept of it. And there's this philosopher, starts with an A. If someone remembers that, just text me. So he talks about how short, like if you follow whatever you feel in the moment and it's like short desires, you will be like happy. But a lot of philosophers criticized him for that, because the issue is you need to differentiate between different desires that you might encounter. And so there's a different philosopher that talks about the different types of desires you can actually have, and that sometimes eating the chocolate bar, that's the really famous example, makes you happy in the moment, but long term you will not be happy to eat this chocolate bar. And maybe you should have like not used the money for the chocolate bar and instead save it up for your bike. And based on that, like just thinking what you just told me, that reminds me of it, that we try to like solve things really fast. We want to see results right away. We don't want to like, if we want results, but we think like, oh, I feel better a little bit, even though I feel nothing and I'm just numb, but maybe that's going to just help me to survive, to continue on in life. But we don't think about long-term outcomes. We don't think what will happen in a year if I continue like that. What will happen if I continue like that and I just ignore everyone else around me and I just passively continue living my life. And I'm really like hearing these things, and personally, I wouldn't say that I dealt with specifically depression, but I've been like in places like last year, like where I was really like down for different reasons. Like it's like my grandma died, went through a breakup. It just things happened, and you know I can really I can relate to your story back. I have one question that has a little bit nothing to do with the flow before we get back into it. But I'm curious, would you say people learn through making the mistakes themselves or through someone telling them? Because that's like a big thing that I always think about. My aunt once said that she can help me or tell me as often as she wants what she did wrong in her life, but I will never actually learn the lesson to such a grave extent till I actually reach the point and make the same mistake. And I've been thinking about it, how, you know, it's easier to advise your friends on issues, on relationship issues or anything else, and you want to help them, but they never understand it till they get it themselves. And so what do you think about that?
I really like how our talk is evolving because you tap on points each time that I would like to address.
It's not
later.
planned.
So it's very interesting. See, do you remember that dynamic I told you in its simplest form, that we do something, we get a feedback from the world, from other people, from actions, from processes. We get a feedback, then we correct. Like it's like we're driving, then we notice that we should move to right. We get some signs that we should move to right, and then we move to right. Then we don't bump into anything. You know, if we bump into something, we notice next time we see that sign, we have to turn right. So, I would say, again, I have to approach this and build some notions before I approach your question. So this is how we interact with the world. And when I say with the world, I don't mean only the physical world. When you are experiencing whatever you're experiencing, your consciousness is experiencing whatever it's experiencing, there's you and there is what it is not you. It could mean other people, it could mean a rock, it could mean a music, anything that is not you is the world for you. So world has different levels of giving you signs. And again, I don't want your audience to get me wrong. When I say the world is giving you signs, it's only a metaphor. I do not mean the world. I'm not trying to infer that the world is alive. It could be for some people. I believe some parts of it. We'll talk about it later about my opinions, but if you're interested, of course, but I'm just saying that world will give you something. Okay, imagine that ego, that person. Okay, there is only one way out, which is with your behavior or your whatever you're saying, and there is only one way in. It could be what you perceive, it could be what you eat, it could be anything that is input to you, and you have output. Okay, that input could be a sign for you to understand how you should correct yourself. For example, if I met you one time and I coldly greet you, you might be cold with me after that. So that's a sign for me that, dude, you shouldn't greet someone so coldly. Okay, something very simple like that. There are different levels of signs we get in this world to correct ourselves. And this is what I'm saying is based on Jungian psychology. Okay, this is how, based on his words, collective unconsciousness and the world and many elements in it, they talk with you when you have to correct, you learn a lesson about something. The first level is that you hear it or you see it in a very subtle, kind, loving manner. It could be a friend telling you you're doing too much drugs, or you're too unkind with your loved ones, or you're ignorant of your duties. Your boss might tell you. So this is the first kindest way. And smart people, in my opinion, they get it right up at that stage, because there are no consequences for you. You're just hearing it from someone. You can just easily listen to them. Of course, I understand you cannot listen to everyone. So you have to choose, because not everyone has genuine...
a genuine opinion. It's like your best friend will probably, like, I trust the people that I'm the closest with, that they will tell me directly, as a German, what they think. And if they tell me something, hey, like, something is up, like, can you please pay attention to that? I will take it more to heart than to someone who's just maybe just saying that to me, because there's so many opinions out there and so many people that think they know what's the best for you. But sometimes you need to kind of listen to your gut feeling too, but also be open to listen. Like, that's what I do. Like, I would listen to the critique, understand that, hey, maybe someone sees it differently, but then I also always get feedback from people that know me longer, also just to, like, kind of get a better picture of, is it just a one person thing? Is it the person, like, because of the person itself?
That's very important. I just want to add this before you say the rest, because one of the rules by which you can find the genuine ones that are actually helpful for you and you can walk towards a better path, two things you mentioned are the most important. How long they know you, so they don't make wrong judgments about what is good for you. The other one is how many people are saying this. So if there are like 5 people pointing at a part of your character that is not very well developed, you should know there's something up for you. Okay, like if you don't correct it, you'll meet other stage. We'll get to it. Please go on. Sorry.
No problem. This reminds me of you also need to pay attention that sometimes the people around you that are the closest are a reflection of yourself. I would say like the people around you are a reflection of certain traits that you have. And if you're mad at them for something, sometimes you also need to check if you have the same traits, because we attract the same people. We attract people with the same interests. Really, like it's really difficult to find people that are so different, because even though we might be open to new values, we still stick to people that have really similar values, backgrounds. I think we had this conversation once about your current girlfriend, and then how culturally things are aligning so well that we connect with the person better. And that's when I come in, and I think you need to find, like, also be aware of these like similarities, and the reason why maybe you don't understand someone who's like from a different culture telling you something that bothers them is because the people around you are also not from like the US. And it's a really interesting thing that my best friend does in relationships. She would like ask different friends groups that have nothing to do with each other. They don't know each other. They have different backgrounds, to like give her like a feedback of like what is like happening. How do they feel around the person? Do they think this person is respectful? Do they feel respected while talking to the person? Like what are the values? And you get a broader range of subjective opinions, but more different, like a variety of different opinions. So you can actually form a better view of like, okay, this is something I should work on. And this is not just something one person says to me. These are different people that have nothing to do with each other. They don't know each other. They can't influence each other or talk about it with each other, and so on. I hope that like...
That's very interesting. I think it's an interesting approach, but I think life and society in general, it gives you better tools. You just need to try more. Is that you're already getting feedback, constant feedback from people around you when you're interacting with them. You just need enough experience to read on those feedbacks. The way people want to talk with you, the way they approach you, the way they message you, you can read things between those lines, that how someone, if they're interested in interacting with you, if you're talking too much, you just have to be a bit witty and smart and get it from the moment, because these things, they unroll in the moment. Okay, so for example, right now we're talking. Okay, I'm feeling that you want to say something. Okay, of course it's obvious you would feel the same from me too. So there's things of this nature that when you interact with other people, you can pick up on. And actually, just last thing, when older people say we have more experience in life, it's people's experience that it's very hard to get and very complex. They're talking about people's experience, how to deal with people, how to get these small, subtle
hints
from
that you get. It's for me like body language. Sometimes I feel
part of it is body language.
People ask me sometimes, Veronica, how did you know this is how I feel? I'm like, it's really obvious sometimes. The more you meet people, the more you sometimes see how people interact, sit, talk to you, how they turn around towards you. Like I remember my first like ever relationship I had, my mom pinpointed it to me. I didn't even see it. She's like, he didn't even turn around to look at you. Like his body language, like from outside, I would never think that you're in a relationship. He didn't even look at you. He just walked past you. And I was like, ooh, these are things like you notice. But also I have a friend who would disagree completely with this point of view, because sometimes we assume too fast before we know. And you need to be conscious when we talk about these things, where look at the body language, try to understand the person, read the room. You need to do both. You need to understand it's your judgment. It might be wrong, but also acquiring some knowledge about it might help you a lot. Like having social gatherings with people, like dinners with people that you don't know well, helps you a lot to read the room, what topics to talk about and what are not good topics to talk about, especially when it comes to really critical ones. But kind of like to lean a little bit the topic back to like your relationship, so we like don't riff off completely.
Just one thing
Yes,
left out.
Yes.
You asked me how we learn
Yes.
from something,
Yes.
and I just quickly say that. So the first stage is that you learn something by just listening to people around you or the world willingly. Then later, you don't listen, then there would be a bad consequence. Those the start of any bad consequence means that you haven't paying enough attention around you. And they get worse. They get worse until you learn. And some things you can get on with it in your life, not learning about it. Some things, the society is built in a way, it will correct you. Okay. And we're talking about basic things. So for example, if you're a cold person, it's fine. You can go on with it. You might have less friends. You might don't go up the success ladder too fast because you don't socialize. These are fine. You can go on with it. But if you're a liar and you lie to everyone, you will get caught one time, and you will get caught so painfully. As your aunt said, I believe you mentioned that she said that sometimes you have to learn it by yourself. You by yourself means you will learn it so painfully, you pay such a price for it that you will never forget it. And you will always be a good boy after that.
This is how you become a good boy. But
so, yeah.
It will have a big impact. That's what I feel like. It's like when you tell people, be careful when you go outside, be careful when you go outside all the time. You know, when your parents just nag you on something, well, the moment you realize why they did it, and the older you get, and that's kind of like the fun fact about myself. When I was younger, I listened to my mom, but I also didn't really listen to my mom. And the older I get, the more I understand their perspective. It's like you just never will tell them probably 100% that they were right, because it's just a weird feeling of telling your parents, oh, you were right. But they know that. Like, it's everyone goes through these stages, and it's normal to make mistakes, and we're not trying to like say like you need to be perfect and know everything you're gonna do in life. It's just sometimes you should still listen. And I think that's something like, don't make the mistakes by yourself completely. Listen and be aware of what might happen, and it might like help you in life. So continuing with the relationship, so we don't drift off. You said the relationship was bad, or like the breakup, depression. 1.5 years you lived and passively lived on your life.
So I was working, but I couldn't see meaning in my work. I just felt something I'm good at, so I have to do it because it makes me money, and money will make me survive. This was my mindset. It wasn't like I'm making a change, or it wasn't like, and part of it because that I was an atheist almost all my life, like till I was 27, 8 years old. And at that time, when I was depressed, I was still an atheist. Before that, I used to drive meaning for my actions from what I do. And I thought I'm good enough at what I do, and this can help others, and blah, blah. But later, when I get the depression, I felt, so the part of what gives you depression is a very simple question that you keep saying to yourself. In my opinion, it was very prominent. I always ask this question from myself. In others, might be 1 time, 2 time, but it's there because it's a very deep question. It's very simple. So what? I'm doing this for what? For what?
What is the reason? What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, and again, in depression, you believe already that there is no meaning. You believe already that there's nothing behind the things we're doing.
So you enhance your own beliefs through your own feelings and emotions that are not there. And the more you convince yourself that it has no meaning, so it's kind of like justifying your own actions almost. You justify your own actions for not doing anything
you justify also your view, because your action makes your situation later, and your situation affirms your view. You're exactly like you say, you say there's no meaning behind anything, so you don't do anything. Then when you don't do anything, everything becomes worse. Everything will become spoiled. Okay, and when everything's spoiled, you see, there's no point in everything, and everything is negative. So it's like a horrible.
It's like
loop.
Nietzsche with just. I'm thinking of Nietzsche and Kleist. I don't know if you heard of Kleist.
Yes.
Like random story. Kleist decided to commit suicide. He wrote a fantastic novel, Marquise von O. That's what's the name. It's a German one, German classic. And he convinced himself, because he was inspired by Nietzsche and he was such in a depression, that life has no meaning. And he committed suicide with his lover, not his wife, his lover. And he convinced his wife, but his wife was like, I don't understand you at all. And he convinced himself that it's, why should I continue living through hell if I don't need it? He was also like, I think, taking some drugs. Please don't judge me if it's completely wrong, but that was the story. And it's the same thing. Sometimes I feel like you need to turn around the thing. Like, if you understand there's no meaning to life, because technically there isn't, if you see it this way. But the fact that there's no meaning to life, you need to find the meaning, or like create a meaning. Because no one will judge you in the end of the day, and most people will not remember who you are after you die. It matters maybe in a way what you're going to do with that while you live, because it doesn't matter when it's over, right? It's something you find meaning for yourself, someone you might help along the way, some other generation that might benefit, who will continue to live on, and so on.
Specifically, like someone you might help in future, we get back to this. And I strongly believe that there is meaning to life. And there's, so we commit a kind of a fallacy when we say there is no meaning to life. Technically, I understand your point. When you say technically, it means based on science and the objective world there is outside of us, there is no meaning. I agree, but I don't understand why a human who has a brain and they are inside that brain must ever think about what's the objective meaning of life. Because whatever you're going to experience is from your body, and your body is subjective, and you don't need to consider objective ever in that manner. We'll get that. We'll get there. I just want to tell you a bit more of my story. I'll cut it short so I don't make you tired. But my depression got worse and worse and worse. And also my situation wasn't the best because I was an Iranian. In Europe, many banks in Europe, they're afraid of the sanctions if they open a bank account for an Iranian. So they didn't open a bank account for me. For almost the 4 years I was there, I requested 11 times to have a bank account, like a simple bank account.
11 times.
And I didn't have a bank account because they were just afraid to open a bank account for me, because they could be sanctioned, because the whole financial system in my country is sanctioned, is isolated from other systems. So you cannot send money, you cannot receive money, blah, blah. Yes.
It's the same with
Russians
the Ukraine war.
Like this,
completely same thing. Like Russians, it's the same thing. Like we used to support my grandma in Russia, just like monetary, because she didn't get like much money from her pension. And we can't, because at this point, well, my grandma's also not alive anymore, but also we can't because of the sanctions. Like everything is just blocked completely. Money transfer is blocked, and I know other countries suffer from the same issue where you don't get any like you can't open a bank account, you can't transfer in money, you can't receive any money. It's even difficult sometimes for a German open just a bank account in the United States because there's so many rules and you're like struggling with that. But we're not talking about like sanctions.
So there was these situations,
keep going.
and each one of them hurted me a little bit, but multiplied by the depression I had, It just made my situation worse and worse until we get to the 2019 December 20 something, I don't remember, when the corona hit. First time I saw it in the news that the corona has taken over the
Mm.
China, and I was afraid a little bit. I felt a bit weird that what will happen? This seems dangerous. And then maybe less than a month later than that, corona took over all parts of the world. And Spain and Italy, if you remember, they were one of the hardest places to hit. And we were in. So imagine you're already depressed, and there is a pandemic going on, and then suddenly your landlord, because you don't have a bank account, uh, you can't request for more legitimate apartments. So you have to go request for some more sketchy apartments. Maybe they need less things from you, because every place they need your bank account to check your bank account, to check if you owe something, but they didn't request from me. So he told me that I have to move out in the middle of the pandemic. It's quite funny that at the same time I got the corona, I got my COVID too. I got yeah, I got COVID. Yeah.
COVID? You got
So
actually
I
COVID?
remember that
Oh
I
no.
had to move, and no one would rent me any places, legitimate places, only weird places, and I finally had to just satisfy myself enough to live in an attic without a window, in the middle of pandemic. So in Spain for 2 months, I remember we couldn't go out of the house. Uh, we had the right to go out of the house 20 minutes every day, and in the weekends 2 hours. And the
Yeah.
city service, the local government would come to our house. They would ask if we want anything from the local supermarkets, and we would just order it like that. Okay. uh, and again, I didn't have a bank account, so I couldn't even shop for anything when I was in the house. Yeah, pardon me?
Were you
No, I wasn't
starving?
starving. I they
Were you
were
starving? Okay.
the city service for the from the government was very good. They handled it
Mm-hmm.
very good. I Whatever I wanted, I would just um like select it. They had like a local app. I would select it, and then I would pay for it. But the payment was a problem. So I had a friend there. They would help me pay for it, and then I would pay them by cash. And I always had this like huge amount of cash in house. It's super dangerous. Barcelona is an amazing city, but it has a situation with thieves.
So
Like daily, several times
yes,
you
I've heard
literally
about
hear
that.
out of the window that someone got robbed. Okay, it's I think top three places that you can get robbed. And I
Yeah,
always had this
it
like
is. It
a
is.
knife next to my, because I had a lot of money, because I couldn't have bank account, and but I had to save my some money somewhere. So I had this knife next to my bed always. I was afraid. So I would pay my friend with cash, and he would pay for my groceries. Um, I also still got drugs. So at that point, I was fully addicted to marijuana, and I would smoke maybe 6, 7 big joints each day. I would wake up, I couldn't feel even walking without smoking. And I'm not proud of it, of course. This is a horrible state. It's just that at that point, with all of these horrible things, so imagine during the pandemic how stressed we were. And I don't mean like for your life, it's just something that has never happened to humanity. The first several months, everyone were like shocked. And imagine you're in this windowless attic, and the only you can go out, the only thing you have is drug, and maybe like watching or learning or reading something, and you're already depressed too. So the situation only got worse until my visa was expired too, because the place I used to work, they didn't sponsor me anymore because they let go of many of their foreign um, employees, because they had to
Employees.
pay for them a little bit insurance and these stuff, and they already. So I was working in school, and the schools were all closed, so they couldn't sponsor my visa for the next year, 2020. So I lost my visa. I couldn't even at that point go back home because the flies were shut. So I just stayed in my room for 3 4 months in a dark room, and I was just smoking marijuana and just watching some things or reading some things. The only things I could do is to watch something or read something. I would barely actually eat. I At that point I was so depressed. I lost my will to enjoy the food. So I would only eat these crackers, digestive crackers, with milk, with chocolate
Mm-hmm.
milk. This is what I survived by, and my weight was dropped, well, like maybe 20 pounds. And yeah, it got worse and worse and worse and worse until one time I remembered that I really got sick of it. I was like the same thing you mentioned to me, that it's like it's hell for me. I can't go on like this. And I lost everything. I worked in this country for like 2 3 years, but now I lost my visa. I made many sacrifices for myself. I lost my relationship that I was in for 6 years. So one of the things happen when you're depressed is that you purposefully sabotage your relationships with everyone. So I was mad at everyone in my life at that point, and I didn't want to even hear them. I would rarely talk with them, maybe once a month, and I wouldn't show to them that I'm depressed. This is one of the problems, that if someone is depressed, many times it's a hidden issue. You wouldn't know until they want you to know. And in most cases, they don't want anyone to know. They don't even want to connect with anyone. They already let go of all the desires, as you remember, we talked about, even the desire for connection to other people.
It reminds me of this commercial where these two men are sitting in the stadium. I don't know what company it is for, and it's like suicide awareness, things like that. And basically, this one guy, he's super upset and he's sad all the time, and the other guy is like cheering him on and be like super happy. It's like it's gonna be fine, and they show several days or several weeks, and it happens all the time. And this other guy is sad, and one day the seat of the happy person is empty. And the question or the answers of this message, I still remember, such a good marketing campaign, if you think this way, that sometimes you don't see what's actually happening, and the happiest people usually sometimes are the ones that also suffer the most. Was kind of sad. So it's not always what you think. There isn't like a picture of how a depressed person looks like. It's not. There isn't a picture of how a sad person looks like.
Expectations and those things we talked about, society, it's not normalized in society. So pictures or signs or different way of communications are developed so people can say you're depressed in a proper way. It's you'll get stagnated. People will think you're crazy, or you're weak when you say I'm depressed, or you think there's something wrong with you. So nobody say it. Sorry.
Don't worry. I was done with the story, but it's just that's the thing that I was thinking of.
Yes.
Did you drop your phone? This is what happens mid recording. No, it just reminds me of be aware of the people around you and try to understand them as much as you can, because sometimes you don't even know that they are going through something so serious. And even people say, especially, I know this is a sensitive topic, but when people try to commit suicide, the last hours, or that's like scientifically proven, people usually are really happy. They're like the happiest people on earth. You think like, what's wrong? Like they laugh, they talk, you think everything is fine. And it's just something in our head that just switches, even though we already made the decision.
That's very true. And again, at those dark moments, I actually thought of committing suicide. and I later got on with it. So when you want to do this, you might think about it for a long time until you do it. One of the reasons they ask you, have you ever thought of harming yourself or committing suicide, is that they know if you're thinking, like the science of psychology knows, if you're thinking about this daily, several times a day, in details of how you would do it or what other people would think if you do it for a long, long time while you're depressed, is not a good sign. It would eventually happen if there is no intervention. Okay, that's why they would ask you this on these questionnaires wherever you go for mental health. And I did it. I took some pills, and I even remember I chose like a song to leave this world with it. Okay, and um, I survived. How? So when I took the pills and I went to bed to sleep, and I knew these are my last moments. A friend who I haven't been in contact for like 4 months in Barcelona, suddenly at like 1 a.m. they messaged me, "Hey, how's it going?" And they didn't know what I'm doing for 4 months. Okay, and they would never message me like that. Okay, this is my personal view. Objectively, there's no magic in anything. It's just physical world. But when you add the human factors, psychology, ego, society to this, there are magic. There are things we don't know why it happens because we don't know this dynamic perfectly. We don't know how it works.
And I don't
Yeah,
think
it's
we can
very, it
ever
would be
figure it
very.
out. It's like the flow of the universe. It's like things happen, and you're like, why did I meet this person at this moment in this bus, on this day? I could have picked the other bus.
So,
Like, why did it happen?
based on some people's opinion, like Carl Jung, our society
I
is
know
not
Carlo.
just a collection of individual people. We are part of a bigger, metaphorically living organism, which is called society. And this organism has its own parts. And I'm just using metaphors to convey these complex ideas. If you're interested, you can read Jung. You shouldn't judge these ideas only by my explanation. I'm just trying to simply explain it. So we are this organism called humanity. Okay, this humanity has its own defense mechanisms, has its own red blood cells, has its own digestive system, but these are metaphors, of course. What I mean though is that based on those ideas, if I'm doing something bad to myself and but deep down maybe I'm willing to come back to life, maybe that system, that living system, activates some parts of it that
Will
responds to me
respond.
in so this is my opinion. We'll maybe we have time to get a little bit in that later. But so this friend called me and they said, "How hi, how's it going?" And I just had this habit that I would respond to people. Okay, and I said maybe he thinks something is wrong, so I respond to it. But I didn't know when you're seeing your perspective to the world is you're thinking that these are your last moments, you will become dramatic. You will become dramatic and people will notice that. Of course you'll become dramatic. What you feel is that these are my last moments, not like 2 hours before, like 10 minutes before I say farewell to this world. So uh, I wasn't myself when I talked with him. Um, then then I just left the phone next to my bed, played the song. Then I don't remember what happened. The only scene I remember is that they broke the door, came in because my friend noticed there's something off with me. He noticed a bit before that I am already depressed, and he talked with me more after that because he felt something is wrong. Sent me voice message. I didn't respond. He called me. I didn't respond. He knew I would be awake at that time. So after he didn't get any response, thinking about all of this, it's very amazing to me how he reached this conclusion. It's very interesting. I always asked him. He told me, I just felt something is off with you that is
Off.
dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he rescued me. I was in hospital for 2 days, and this experience changed my life after that. Because the first thing I noticed is that most of the people who might do this, they might think, or thinking of doing this, they might think that it's just you become free. You will become free of pain. You will become free of responsibility. But what they're not understanding is that free relates to a subject. And while a subject, is a perceiver, is alive. So what they think is going to be like, they will see their soul be free and go wherever or fly somewhere, or they go to the afterlife. But what I experienced was absolute darkness, nothingness, nothing. How you sleep? How do you remember when you weren't in this world? You just open your eyes and you came to this world. You don't remember what happened before that. Do you remember all the history? No. What will happen after that, at least from the physical view, is that I was in like I was in like a deep sleep for one whole day. It was as if I closed my eyes and I opened my eyes after. I felt nothing. I didn't even dream anything. I just immediately opened my eyes after I closed my eyes. It's nothingness. So if you think that if you do something, it would free you, or it would make you feel no pain. No pain is when you had pain, then you have no pain. But you still exist when you say, I have no pain. There is a I. Death, there's no I. There's nothing. Your agent ship in this world is gone. So one of the first things I noticed was this. The second thing I noticed, it was like as if weirdly, because this is a moving experience, although I willed it, it was a very moving experience. The first times I opened my eyes in the hospital, I noticed, I was thinking, what would happen if my friend didn't message me? What would happen if these doctors weren't here? What would happen if there was no hospital? I was strangely thinking of this. Because before that, I thought there's no purpose in anything. There is no meaning in everything. Then, oddly enough, one day, still in the hospital, maybe the third day, I noticed there is a meaning in life. It's very obvious. It's so obvious in front of our eyes that we always miss it. It's very obvious. We take it for granted. What is obvious? So we're in a studio now, okay? Just very quick question. What do you, just tell me some of the things you see in this studio? Black walls. What
walls,
else? Just
you sitting, talking to me.
the system,
the audio
walls.
system.
I noticed. So at that point, I was thinking, we were technically, based on what you said also, we were monkeys, okay? We were some animals before. We were literally monkeys, okay, based on the evolution. And we were less evolved humans before. And then we evolved a bit and we became humans, but we were still very primitive. What happened that we have all of these things in front of us right now, like this audio system, this microphone, these walls, these clothes we have, these phones we have? Simply what happened. Not, of course, you can go on and explain all the details in the history exactly at what moment what happened, but generally, why these things are in front of us? Why there were things in front of us when we were a baby came to this world? Because humans willed it to leave some things behind after they left this world, and the other person uh, preserve that legacy, let's call it, and adds to it and leave another part behind. So if there were people before, they knew how to record good rooms that you can hear the music properly in the history, maybe in Greece or maybe in ancient Persia. They were rooms, they architectured it in a way that the acoustics works perfectly, okay? And they tried things. So, but they died. We don't know even their name. But what is remained of their work, of those moments they experimented things? How to build an acoustic room. Then people came after them, came after those ideas. They preserved it, they added to it. This is in front of us. It's literally all those lives of those people, all those moments they did things manifested into physical objects, as you can see it in front of you. Okay? Anything you can pick, if your audience are in a car or in the street, anything you pick, there is generational wisdom behind it, how people build things. So, I noticed at that point is that nature, the purpose of life, there are more complex purposes that are subjective. You can build it for yourself, but there is a factual, hands down, feet on earth meaning for life that you cannot deny it because you're experiencing it. It's in front of you. You can deny participating in this dynamic to experience something useful, pass it on to others, and they
to not be part of the community, like like the thing you said, being part of this living society that is one body that acts together and like tries with the flow that is in it, like work it out.
So I just end this that there is a purpose in life. There is a basic purpose. You can add to it. You cannot not follow it. You wouldn't be considered a human if you're not doing it. And there's no person who's not doing it. If you're at least in communication or connection with one person, you're still communicating. How tiny it is, it's fine. You're still adding to this reservoir, which is called our collective. There's a conscious part of the collective, there's an unconscious part of the collective. We'll definitely talk about it. What is this collective? They're not physical things. They're the knowledge and notions and processes of how the physical things, the properties of physical things, how they could be made, the rules who guards them. And that collective, I believe, is something we call God. We'll get into it later. It's just, if you're interested, it's just that there is meaning. If someone says there's no meaning to life because they lost themselves in all these scientific facts that try to be objective, but they don't understand this sublime but subtle fact that you are always a subject. You cannot be subjective. For example, they say, like some nihilist people, they say that the earth is going to be destroyed in like 4 billion years. You are like this guy, like Carl. You are Carl, 24-year-old Carl, living in Germany, for example, 2024. You're that person. You're not going to be around 4 billion years later. How do you know in 4 billion years we're not going to do anything about that? How do you know? And there is no guarantee, but also there is no guarantee in good way, bad way. But humanity actually proved to us that actually, if we consider the hopeful story, that's almost always the case that will happen in general in about our survival. Okay, so if someone tells me I find no value, no meaning in religion, more complex things like religions, I completely understand. I found no value, no meaning in it for long, long years. After this experience, actually, as I told you, I was thinking seriously, thinking full power for one day. I reached this conclusion that is in front of you. You can see there is a meaning in things around you. If they had no meaning, they would actually had no function.
But are we not a society the ones that, going back to the topic in the beginning, that we put into society and say what is actually a need, what is actually a meaning in our society, right? So maybe it's also, you need to think about what is something that is meaningful for yourself, what is something society gives you, but also how can we contribute to the society? Because it's important to contribute in finding your own meaning in your subjective meaning. And even though one meaning maybe falls apart and you can't find it anymore, there's always a way of finding a second meaning. So if one meaning disappears, it doesn't mean that was your only meaning in life. A lot of people put a big emphasis on one specific thing in life, like getting this job, and it's like their meaning of life. But they realize they don't get the job and the meaning of life is gone. But I think you should not think of meaning of life as a construct that is like the whole time there and it's going to continue all the time. There are several meanings of life that we have continuously through life, and they can be the smallest one ever. Just, yeah. But you were kind of finishing it up, and yeah.
So I just want to clarify about what I said about meaning of life a bit more. Is that first of all, what I said is there are subjective meanings and objective meanings. Um, Objective meaning is actually quite a tricky combination of words because meaning is not objective inherently. Is meaning is subjective. But what I mean is that what you can observe without the matter of who you are outside of yourself is that there is this conceptual container called humanity, that it contains all of the things we've been doing so far, and it saves it and it adds to it by nature. And who adds to it? Their members. You can say I'm not part of humanity and go live in the mountain and farm your own food and
Completely off grid. Yeah.
yeah, and still it's a legit thing, okay? But while you're in a city and use the water, use the electricity, use the internet, you're part of the humanity. And that I think it's a basic one. Another meaning that again is objective but is of a higher order, it explains more complex things, is human connection, human interaction. Nothing would be possible around us, nothing, if people who had those individual ideas didn't connect. Human connection, I believe it has some sort of magic inside it. Is by magic I mean something that it seems to me unnatural. You can't find it in the nature. How we humans work with each other through language and communicate with each other and decide for things, reach conclusions, change each other's opinions, um, and yeah, that's another meaning. That again, if you're in a society, if you had parents, they were humans, they connected with you. If you had friends, you're connecting with them. You cannot deny something like this. That's why I'm saying it's objective. I don't mean objective as the as its straight
Mm-hmm.
meaning, that because meaning, again, meaning is against objectiveness, because objectiveness, in objectiveness there is no brain, there is no person, there's only sensors who that's why some sciences are so objective. So yeah, again, first order is that you're part of a
Existing.
system, you can see it, you're existing in a system, you can see it in front of you, part of your purpose, your objective purpose, the purpose of life for you, not the purpose that you have for your life, is to still exist in the system and propagates it. Okay, and the higher order of this purpose, again, is to connect with fellow humans, any type of human you want, and do the first
And create meaning.
purpose, create meaning, create meaning, preserve meaning, communicate with other people. You can save them. You are part of this body, humanity's body. 1,000 years ago, a Persian poem, he mentioned this in his work, that humanity is written on the entrance of United Nations. Okay, humanity is part of a huge, big, multifaceted body. If parts of the body has pain, all body has pain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think this is another again, the higher purpose of life is that you, if you accept the first purpose, which is being part of the society and this concept of humanity, then if there's pain in this body, you must feel not easy, and you should contribute to alleviate that pain. It could be something very trivial. It could be something very subtle. It could be something very big. It could be in different aspects. Maybe you are interested where the tongue of our humanity is, which relates to taste. Maybe you're interested to make good food. You make people very happy about their lives when you make good food. Maybe you're interested into the ear of humanity. Maybe you're interested into their heart, brain, whatever. It's just that you should know this humanity has different facets, different aspects, and you, whatever you're interested in, you should contribute to that. If you're not interested in contributing to it, then you will have no meaning. Done. That's when you fall into depression. And I'm not saying maybe you don't fall into depression, you will still have no meaning, because that's the basic, because you're in it. If you're outside of it, if you're, imagine you're living in a
Mm-hmm.
jungle with your own fellow jungle man, and then someone explains to you these concepts, and you say, I don't care about it, I have whatever I want here. Of course, okay, live your life. You're still, though, part of that tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that tribe is the basic meaning for you. Okay, if you're not in that tribe, then you would lose many of the things you think you are. So again, I, to whoever it might help them, there is a meaning in life. There are higher meanings you can choose, and it's subjective. Someone might say the meaning for my life is to uh, raise good children, or to help other humans in pain, or treat humans, or create amazing music, or go to heaven if you're religious, or please God. However it works for you, it's fine. But know that there is a very basic meaning about life, that
It's enough.
always remember this part.
It's
It's in
enough
front
to
of you.
exist. It's enough to just be you. It's enough to not overthink and try to find the meaning of life, because the meaning of life already exists. The first part, the first step of meaning of life exists from the beginning on. The moment you open your eyes, you're already there.
you already exist in it. I want to further what
You're
you said.
part of
You're
it.
already in it. You're part of
And
a
I think the thing
purpose
that
of
cut
life.
off my audio, unfortunately, but things happen, is if you don't see a different, like higher meaning in life that is reflected in society, you can always create one. And by creating it through community, through other people, through understanding that there are other people that might suffer from the same issues. Maybe there isn't a specific meaning in life or a specific spot in society for you, but maybe you'll find meaning somewhere else. And I think you need to think further. If you're the one responsible for the norms that are in society, you also can change it. And change doesn't mean that you need to be the president of a whole country. That means you can just be you. Just be you and your family. Just try to connect with the people locally around you, the closest people that are surrounded by you, and try to like understand them and listen to them and like actively listen to them what they need and find your meaning in these small things. Yeah, I had a wonderful talk. Like I really appreciate it for you approaching me. You know, this is like so random, right? You just randomly decided to reply.
Yeah, because we had these talks, deep talks, and I didn't know you had like this podcast. And the moment I noticed, we were already talking about these things. So I just thought, because I think not many of the things I said were actually other people's opinion, like philosophers or psychologists. So you can choose not to believe in them, or you can choose to go deeper or
Research
read
more.
further. But my own opinion, something that I reached, and I told you about the purpose of life, is something I deeply personally experienced, and you still can completely deny it because I understand it's my own perspective and experience about the world. It's just that I might think many people who might go through the depression or afraid of mental illness, or they already have had it before, experienced it before, they might find this useful to know that someone went to absolute hell and came back fine.
And is a wonderful
Like I
person.
never experienced depression after that. When I went to the hospital, I briefly went to a psychologist to just get things
Sorted out. Yeah.
tidy after that. But it's just that the meaning part, it fixed everything in my life. It's not magic. It's very obvious. It's deep down in our psyche. If you have meaning for your life and constructive, positive meaning, it will make your life better magically. So yeah, I think it might
And
help
I really
someone
hope
later.
that whoever is suffering from depression or whatever will maybe find this helpful, these words and this story, and understand that I really hope, dear listeners, whoever is listening, even if it's just one person, right? That was literally the beginning, the meaning of my podcast. I was hoping at least one person will listen to that and be happy about it, and maybe
Yeah, one person makes
yes,
me honored, even if there's one person listening to this and they might not even agree with me, but they hear
and they
what I
can
said. They
yeah,
might later convey it to others, narrate it to others. Maybe they don't believe in it, but they see someone depressed and they can tell them that, dude, look around
there's
you.
so much more that you can do.
There's much more in the things you just deem as objects. There is much more into
Than
them.
you might see on first sight. And I really hope that to the person that suffers from that they will have this one random friend or random person that might help them out. And
I hope to.
thank you, Nima. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being
Thank
on my
you very much.
podcast. I maybe in the future there's gonna be another one about religion or something else.
I hope.
It was wonderful having you here, and dear listeners, please be careful. You're not alone. We all go through things, and being in, no matter where you are in life and what age group you're in, everyone goes through things, and maybe the thought of not being alone makes it much easier. Thank you so much.